Okay. Hello, everyone listening or watching this on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Fireside. I have a very, very special guest today. It, he is Daniel Priestley, is someone who is not only an expert on becoming a powerful entrepreneur, but he is also a 4 times best-selling author. Okay, not once, not twice, 4 times. And those are the books that he wrote by himself. So there are also others that he co-authored. But one of the reasons I admire you so much, Daniel, is not only all the successes that you have, but you are also so incredibly humble, and you are really sharing your experience, really like everything that you did without really holding anything back. And so I know that this is going to be an incredible episode for everyone to learn from, not only personal branding, but a lot of things from you from entrepreneurship. So
Well,
thank
thank you
you
very much for
for
inviting me.
joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
And Daniel, I know that you also have an international journey, which I realize that few people, actually have. So, would you like to tell us, like, what made you want to move to England? Yeah,
Yeah,
because you're
sure.
Australian, so
I'm Australian. I grew up in a retirement area called the Sunshine Coast, which is very much just beach and surfing and walks on the beach and forests and all of those sorts of things, like all the time sunny. And I figured since I had already done my retirement years, I should probably move to a big city. When I was in my 20s, my early 20s, I built a business in Australia that was a very fast growth company. It became a multi-million dollar revenue business. I think we got to about $10 million in the first 4 years. So it was a very fast growth business. I hadn't even turned 25 at the time. So our big high point was age 24, 25. And I got an opportunity to do a partial exit from that business and then to go and relaunch a new office in London. So I hadn't really traveled outside of Australia very much. I'd extensively traveled inside Australia, and then I thought I'll do what everyone does, which is come to London for a year or two and see what London's like. And I thought I'd go snowboarding, and I'd go to different European cities, and then I'd go home and I'd go back to Australia. But actually, I accidentally met a girl, got married, had 3 children, started a business in London that succeeded. So here I am 16 years later.
yeah, I was gonna ask you what made you stay in London, because I read it's not the weather, right?
It's not the weather. No, I met my wife and we had 3 lovely children. So London's home now. But London's a great city. I mean, it's the most incredible city. There's so many amazing people. It's full of diversity of ideas and a diversity of people, and it's got great proximity to the world, and it's a lovely lifestyle. I'm also a big fan of London. It's not just the marriage and kids.
By the way, I'm getting some static. Is it coming maybe from your mic? Because
Not that I
sometimes,
know of. I can easily change my microphone.
yeah, because at some point we could not hear you, but could be really be anything. You're not
Do you want
talking,
me
right?
to, if
Okay.
you want, I can go back to my built-in microphone. Is that better? Is that a bit better?
Yes, much better. Okay.
Okay, no worries.
Hello everyone. Okay, we're starting to have some friends joining, but okay, let me like do the interview first, and then if anyone wants to ask questions, Troy, Isabel, and everyone else, Mark, I know other people are also on Fireside. Um, so Daniel, so this is how you are coming to from Australia to the UK, and but I know that already at age 21. You are starting a company, and in 1 year, it gets to 1 million.
Yeah.
So tell us more about that. Is there first of all, is there someone in your family or surrounding who inspired you to be an entrepreneur? And the second question being, what do you think made you so successful? Because at this age, and this being what, like really beginning of internet years?
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't even have a lot to do with the internet, to be honest. So when I was 19, I worked for a guy called John, and he went and started a new business, and I basically got to be right at the beginning of his business. In fact, I was there when he was coming up with the names for the business. We were sitting around the kitchen table talking about naming the business and how we would launch and all of those sorts of things. So I was part of a startup. There was John, his wife, and 2 or 3 of us on day one. So 3 very young people. We were all under 25. And we helped John to launch his business, and it took off really fast. We went from 0 to 6 million in 2 years. We went from sitting around a table in his house to having huge offices in Melbourne. And it was a quite incredible experience that in the first 2 years, it was built by a team of young people who had no experience. By 2 years in, he was hiring proper professionals, and I didn't really have a good job anymore because they were all smarter than I was. So I decided to leave and start my own company. And when I was 21, and I just copied what I'd learned from my mentor, from John. And one of the things that John did is he had what we call a perfect repeatable week. So a perfect repeatable week is you figure out what is the weekly promotions, what is the weekly sales targets, and you figure out if we do this 40 times a year and we just repeat this 1 week 40 times in a row, then that should produce the target, right? So essentially you take what your target is. The target should always be 1 million. And then you divide it by 40. So you've got to do 40 weeks that produce $25,000. And you basically have to figure out, how do I do 40 $25,000 weeks? And how much do I need to spend on ads? How many sales leads do we need to bring in? How many sales appointments do we need to have? Like all of these types of things. So you start with the idea of $1 million for the year. You then break it down into the 40 weeks, and then you execute those 40 weeks and you repeat it over and over and over again. But the thing is that that's all I'd been taught by John. And I just copied it, and I just did it. And in the first year, we actually exceeded our targets, got to 1.3 million in year 1, and we got to 400,000 of profit. So it was just a really great start. We ended up, that business went to 10.7 million in revenue. So it got to about $1 million a month in sales.
Wow. And that's like literally your first business, right?
First proper business. I'd been a nightclub promoter before that. I'd done some little quick business ideas like selling flowers and things like that. But yeah, basically my first proper business, my first company.
But what else would you say contributed to this success? Because you said 1 million in revenue, 400,000 in profits, and that's you only having worked with one person before. So yeah. I feel like there's going to be a lot more than just planning how much you should be earning per month.
Well, a good part of my success was having a mentor for 2 years. When I say a mentor, most people might meet up with their mentor once a month. I worked with my mentor 14 hours a day. So, we would start our morning meetings at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and we would work until, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. And we did weekends, and we traveled all over Australia, and if I had spare time, I would drive John to the airport. I would pick John up from the airport. We would basically working together, huge hours, like crazy hours. We ran things, we did things on the weekends. We didn't really take holidays for those 2 years. So I was very much part of a fast growth business from 0 to 6 million in revenue, and I was meeting with my mentor every single day. So a huge part of it is that learning experience of just being under somebody's wing so closely, who knows more than I did at that age. If you look at some of the world's most successful people, you always see that they worked directly for someone else who was pretty, a lot smarter. So John was much smarter than I was, and probably still is. But some of the ingredients for success is, I'll share with you some of the ingredients. One ingredient is having a very clear core product offering. So you've got to have a really good product that people can buy, as in like you put together a package, and the package has to be somewhere between 2 and 10,000. Yasim, I've lost your camera.
Can you see me now? Sorry, I was plugging it to the charger and it was. Can you hear me now?
Worries. I got you now. Yeah. So look, some of the ingredients is having a good core product, really clearly defined core product package that sells people what they want and what they need. It has the emotional, the logical side of it. It has, it solves a real problem. So essentially, you want to have a product package. Normally, the price of that has to be somewhere between 2 and 10,000, so that it's scalable and that you don't have to do crazy volumes in order to hit your targets. You need a great salesperson. You've got to recruit an amazing salesperson, or you've got to be an amazing salesperson. You've got to have what we call a really good pre-product, or what's called a product for prospects. So you have to have a product that people can get for free or almost for free, and basically you want to have a really easy first step for people. So we used to have a free workshop that we would run. Today we have online scorecards that we use. So you've got to have something that people can engage with cheaply or freely, and then that automatically leads in nicely to the product package. So there's a few of those kind of ingredients. We always used to put some famous faces on our products, as in get well-known people, key people of influence to come in and be speakers at our events and run our workshops. So when you start bringing in all of these ingredients, the business starts to perform. Now, people always think that you bring these ingredients in at the end. Once you're successful, then you can bring in a famous person. Once you're successful, then you'll add all these features. Once you're successful, then you'll get a salesperson. And it doesn't work like that. You've got to start at the beginning with a salesperson and a great product offering and a key person of influence, and then away you go. So I put a lot of energy into getting those things right at the beginning.
Wow. So you are already getting to the questions I wanted to ask you towards the end, but why not? Let's do it Mediterranean style, right? So let me ask you this, because you said something that's so powerful, which I think a lot of us, like newer entrepreneurs, do not really know, because we indeed believe that we need to, be really famous before we can reach out to those like really bigger thought leaders. What would you say that makes someone like you say yes to either an interview, I guess, like when they have something to launch that's easier, but let's say if if I wanted your help to promote, my LinkedIn course, something like this that requires a bigger commitment, what would it take for someone like you to say yes, to have that key person of influence support you, promote, help you?
So I guess it would just have to line up with my existing goals or the existing objectives that I've got. Flipping it another way, when I approach people to be the face of what we do, I will typically make a list of 20, 30, 40 different people who would all be good at that. And I'm expecting that 99% of them are going to say no. I'm expecting most of them will say no. So I'm just making a list of all the people who would do it. So I would never get stuck on one particular person. The next thing is I'm looking for people who want to be the face of something. So, for example, if you go to a speaking agency, there are people who want to get paid to speak. They want to turn up at other people's events, and it's really simple. You just pay them their fee, and they come along and they speak, and that works really well. A lot of the time, you can pay the fee up front, or you can pay it on the day, or sometimes you can pay it delayed terms. But ultimately, there's people who want to be the face of something because they want to either speak at events or they're looking for those kind of deals. Typically, people who speak at events, they love speaking at events, and they're looking for deals that work. Essentially, they're looking to do that sort of stuff. The other thing too is that I only ever ask people to do one thing. So if I go to someone who's got a famous brand, I always just say, would you turn up and speak? You don't have to promote this. You don't have to tweet about it. You don't have to email about it. You just have to be there at the event as a speaker. I'll promote it. And if I start asking them two things, let's say I say, can you please come and speak at my event? And can you also promote the event and help me sell the tickets? It's like, no, that's too much. I might as well do that at my own event. So essentially, that's too much. So I'm always just simply asking for one simple thing, and I'm looking for a way to get them as much money as possible for the smallest effort on their behalf. So, if I can work with someone who's got a big name brand, I'm just putting together a joint venture at the moment, big name brand. It'll probably be about 15 minutes of their time, maybe half an hour of their time, and they'll earn £18,000, something like that. So, I'm structuring things to make sure that they get a great win.
Yeah, I heard you give this advice in another interview, and it really struck me because I did not know that when you first started, like when you started your first business in London, because you were talking about already being the successful entrepreneur in Australia, but when you moved to England, you had to prove yourself all over again.
Oh yeah, no one cared at all. Even people used to joke. I would say, I built a multi-million-dollar business in Australia, and they'd say, well, that's nothing in pounds. That's okay, fair enough.
I know, it's like, so I'm originally from Turkey, and so I worked in the US, in France, in the Netherlands, and I noticed that every time, they dismiss the other countries, and they think it's only difficult for them, especially for Americans.
With the exception,
so I guess UK too, and I'm thinking
with the exception
US
of New
and
York
UK are the easiest. Huh?
Yeah, except for New York and San Francisco. If you've done something in New York and San Francisco, then that counts for something.
Yeah, luckily I did it in New York, so so that's true. And what you just said, would it be, so I know that you started in the events business, so because I'm assuming everyone really is interested in speaking, maybe that's something you can convince the key influencers to do so easier. Whereas, let's say, because I know a lot of people who, who sell, for example, courses. So let's say, like, when I'm launching my, when I'm gonna be doing the launch of my LinkedIn course again, is that, and I have seen that key people in the industry, they ask for your email size. So is there anything else than the email size that you can also convince them to, so they would, and you will give them, like, of course, like 50% affiliate commission or so? Or do you think that does not really apply to
Well, you got to figure out what people want. And if you're talking about someone who's got a great brand and a great reputation already, some people, like, the money's not the big thing. Also, if someone's got a large database, they don't need to promote other people's products. They just promote their own products. You've got to figure out what it is that they want. So essentially, most of the times when I approach people, my first thing is to try and find out what is it that they're trying to achieve. So when I first arrived in London, the very, very first thing that I did was I hosted a beautiful private dining dinner with the most influential people I could get my hands on in London. I invited, because some of them started saying yes, I was able to say, well, this person's going to be there and this person's going to be there. These people I'd never even met. But I said, look, I've picked a nice restaurant in Mayfair. I've got private dining, 2-course meal and wine. I'm bringing together, I've just arrived in London. I'm bringing together the top influencers in London. Would you like to come to a private dinner? I'm paying for it. And they said, yeah, sure, I'll come to that. So I brought together all of these influencers, and very quickly I was one of them because I had brought together the dinner. Then I went and just simply asked them, can we have a one-to-one meeting? Can we have a coffee? So we organized time for coffee, and I scheduled 2 weeks worth of back-to-back meetings with all these people. And in the meeting, I would ask, what are you trying to achieve? What can I help you with? And here's the funniest thing. I just arrived in London. I didn't know anyone. I just said, what are you trying to achieve? What can I help you with? What would you like to do? And essentially, they would tell me what they want and what they're trying to do right now. And I would say, okay, here's an idea. Why don't we promote that in my event that I'm running? Or why don't I'm going to be doing a product launch. Why don't I feature you at my product launch? And they go, oh, great. And I say, fantastic. Well, let's do that. And they say, what do I have to do? I said, well, it'd be really great if you could promote the product launch. It's going to be full anyway. We're going to have a nice full event, but it'd be absolutely lovely if you would promote. I'm happy to pay you 100% of the tickets that come through your link. And they're like, what do you mean 100%? I said, well, we don't make our money on the tickets. We make our money on the back end. Tickets are 30 or 40 pounds. You can have 100% of that. And they're like, oh, okay. So I promote a ticket. I keep 100% and you pay all the costs. Yeah. So you've paid for dinner. Yep. You've paid for coffee. Yep. You're going to promote my event. Yep. So basically I did a lot of that. And what was funny is that we just simply having those conversations, I had 26 people promote the launch event. 800 people showed up. £2 million worth of business came in the first 3 months. So we, the business, I just arrived in London. We had £2 million. I arrived in June, and before we broke for Christmas, £2 million worth of business had been done.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you think about it, each one of those individuals had spent 10 years building their brand and reputation. If I've got 26 of them promoting, I'm leveraging 260 years worth of time that has gone into that experience. So the power of joint ventures and partnerships is to leverage 200 years worth of people's time in one day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a concept a lot of people talk about, but what I really find genius with you is that you took this concept and you made it apply to someone who's just starting out, and like you were in an environment where you didn't even know anyone. So I mean, yeah, so your success is really truly at a whole nother level.
Yeah, look, here's the other thing. That dinner party that I put on, I don't think it cost more than £2,000. I think it was about £2,000. From memory, it was something like £50 a head times 30 people. So it was some £50 or £60 a head times 30 people. So it was about £1,800, something like that. So it's not. I mean, it sounds pretty decadent to buy 30 people dinner, but it wasn't really that decadent. I mean, sure enough, £1,800 is expensive, but it's, plenty of people will enroll on a course for £1,800, or plenty of people will buy a piece of technology for £1,800. I thought it was just a pretty cheap way of launching to get 30 of the top people in London together and to essentially build a relationship with them in one hit.
Yeah, As I said, absolutely genius, because it's not really a cost, it's an investment, right? And
Yeah.
people, yeah. So I think
Yeah.
you're,
I always think about it in terms of time. That if someone has taken 10 years to build their brand and reputation, and I can build a relationship with them, then that 10 years is I've got, I really respect the fact that they've spent that time building whatever they've built. So it's a small price to pay to be able to connect.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because, okay, let me have you mentioned the results of that. I know the answer.
Yeah. Oh, the
So,
results.
yeah, because you were saying in your second year, in your second or third year, you have 5x your revenue, right?
Well, so that was 2006, 2007. We grew up to about 4 million of revenue the following year. And then there was the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, and we actually lost 90% of our revenue in 1 year. So we got absolutely hammered. When the front page of the paper said recession, everything went to a halt. And I had to rebuild the business from scratch in 2010. Well, not from scratch, but from a few 100,000. We'd gone straight up to 4 million, and then we essentially our key suppliers were no longer viable. So I had to kind of rebuild the business with new ideas and new suppliers. We then really took off. And became a global business. We opened in the following few years. We opened up offices: Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Singapore, Tampa, Florida, London, Toronto. So we opened up offices all over the world in the following 5 years. But we had to start from scratch again. I've done a lot of starting from scratch.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay. And I haven't heard about any of those cities. Must be really small places. Oh, wow. Okay. So, well, I have so many questions to you, but why don't we start with your book? By the way, I absolutely loved your, I love all of your books, but especially the key person of influence. And I love that you call it KPI, key performance indicator actually is key person of influence. Would you like to walk us through, the book? And one thing why don't you walk us through the book, and then I want to ask you some specific questions.
Yeah, so the book is, it was written in 2009 and 10, and it was all about the idea that social media was enhancing people's brands, and that in every little industry, there's going to be someone who's the well-known person for that industry, even in micro niche industries. So, building your LinkedIn profile for dentists there'll be a person who's globally the best at that, doing your first marathon for professionals who work in big accounting firms. There's going to be someone who is talking about that. So becoming that key person of influence, I saw that people were kind of building these personal brands before personal branding was a major thing. And I wrote one of the very first books on building that personal brand and positioning yourself as that key person of influence in people's minds. The book was written because I had been working with people who are New York Times bestselling authors. I've been working with dragons and sharks. I've been working with millionaires and billionaires. And basically all of them had written a book, and I was part of what we were doing is bringing them to the stage so they could talk about their book and launch their books. One of the ways we got these really high profile people to come onto our stages was that we timed it so that it was in promotion with their books that they were launching. And anyway, so that was one of the things that I'd learned. So I got to spend time with all these people, and I could see just how crazy it was for them behind the scenes, that basically every single hour of every single day, people were throwing themselves at these people. They were saying, can I give you money? we would pay them maybe 10, 20 grand to come and do a talk on a stage for an hour. But then off the back of that, they'd do another 100,000 worth of business, all the time. So I noticed that they were doing 5 things over and over. They were pitching, constantly pitching the same pitch over and over. They had a very clear pitch that they were pitching. They were publishing content. They had products available to sell. They had a profile when you Googled them, and then they were able to do joint ventures and partnerships because of that profile. And essentially, it was those 5 ingredients that I put into the book, and just kind of blew the lid on that business model and got it out there.
I really wish that I read your book when you launched it, because it's really like, I spoke on a few conferences myself on personal branding, but it's really a concept that I started noticing the past, say, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
If I only had your wisdom 10 years ago, even more, 15 years ago.
It's really exploded in the last 2 or 3 years. It's gone from a nice to have to a must have. So, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was a very, very clear competitive advantage. If you did these things, you would have a massive advantage against everyone else. Today, if you don't do these things, you're going to be left behind. It's the value has shifted from being way ahead of the wave to being on the wave and surfing the wave, as opposed to getting dumped by the wave. I'll tell you a story. This morning, I did a training program with a big company, and they're not entrepreneurs. They're working in business development roles. And 2/3 of these people didn't have their cameras on the Zoom call, right? Most people had their cameras off. And I just thought, you're not going to make it. Like, you're not going to be successful because you're not putting your face out there, right? Here you are, you're in front of me, and I might notice you, and we might connect, and we might build some form of connection. But it's like, here I am looking at a whole bunch of blank faces and names. It's like, you're not, your colleagues aren't noticing you. No one's able to see you. You're not recognizing this is an opportunity for 60 people to see you, connect with you, see that you're professional. When I would say, does anyone have any questions? Even the ones with the cameras on, nothing from them, right? And I'm sitting there going, because I normally work with entrepreneurs who can't wait to kind of get themselves out there. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, if you're in a corporate now, and especially if you're in business development role, and you're not putting yourself out there a bit, if you're not asking questions and making yourself seen and heard, you're just not going to make it. Like, you're really not, because along comes that. Here's the thing. There's always been superstar talent. There's always been people who are better than everyone else because they're just better than everyone else. There's always the number one performing salesperson. But the problem is up until recently, the number one performing salesperson could only call so many people in a day. They could only maybe talk to 50 people a week. But now, if that salesperson is using Facebook Live, if they're on Instagram, if they're on social media, if they're doing a YouTube channel, that one salesperson could be talking to 1 million people a month. And they're gonna literally clean up in that industry and completely blitz it. Whereas everyone else is scratching their head going, well, where's all my warm leads that the company's meant to give me? It's like, well, all the warm leads went to that one key person of influence who's got an epic YouTube channel. They've got scale now. So
Exactly.
you've got to put yourself out there. It's a must-have.
Yeah. And so I love the definition that you gave for the pitch, because I see that a lot of people associate pitch with being really salesy, like this pushy, having this pushy thing saying, hey, I am the best, blah, blah, blah. But I would love for you to say how you defined it, because I was super impressed by it.
Yeah, so pitching is enrolling people into new ways of thinking and behaving. So essentially what you're doing is you're getting people to behave differently or think differently. And look, sometimes a pushy approach might work, right? Maybe you try and you push really hard and then people behave differently and think differently. Fabulous, that's great. If it works, fantastic. But remember that the measure of success is, can you enroll people into your vision? Can you get people to buy in and believe in what you've got to say? So I've seen entrepreneurs who have a very monotone delivery. They have very quiet, softly spoken approach. But when they share the information that they're sharing and they share it with quiet conviction, people say, oh, I love that. I want to get involved in that. So the only truth is the result. The truth is, do people get enrolled in your vision? Do people suddenly say, I want to work with you? And you might say, oh, that person's a bit annoying, but hey, they enroll a bunch of people into their vision. Or you might say that person's a bit too quiet. Hey, they're enrolling people into their vision. So the only truth is, are you finding a way to enroll people into your vision? The way that a key person of influence thinks is that they imagine that people are on a certain path and they're going this way, and that your job is to share with them something the way you pitch, and that as a result of hearing what you have to say, they change path, right? They go somewhere different. So for example, a lot of key people of influence really do say, oh, I change people's lives because I get them to do something they never would have done in some way, whether that be, maybe they work with them on raising money for their company, or maybe they work with them on confidence. Maybe they work with them on public speaking. Maybe they work with them on being a better parent or a better cook, right? So, but it's like, I'm literally changing you. You weren't going to do this, and then you heard my pitch, and now you're going to do it. So what you're looking for is to change the path of someone's life in some way. Maybe it's a small way, maybe it's a big way, but you're trying to change their path. And that's what a pitch should do. It should bend reality towards your vision.
Yeah, I heard you give the example of Steve Jobs, where you woke up that day where you had no idea what an iPad was, and after listening to him, you're like, I have everything. Where do I get it?
Yeah, where do I get it? Yeah, exactly. He bent reality. So millions of people woke up that day never hearing what an iPad was. Then they saw Steve Jobs launch it, and suddenly you had to have one, right? I remember at the time, it was not a particular. I was at that particular moment, I was putting all the available cash that I had into the business, and I was trying to reinvent the business, but I had to have an iPad. So I found the money and I bought the iPad. But he bent the reality. He bent reality around what we thought of as a computer, and he got us thinking differently. His whole thing was get people to think differently. So when I see great entrepreneurs who powerfully pitch, they're trying to bend reality. They're trying to bend the way that people behave and change the way people think. Now, sometimes people are selling, and it's like, okay, that's selling. It's about, making sure that people buy something, and it's, they want to buy, and you handle objections. Pitching's slightly different. It's got more of a it's more on the cusp. It's on the cutting edge. It's the fringe of getting people who had no idea that this is what they wanted to do to suddenly go around and do something different.
Can I ask you for the best pitch you heard, not from Steve Jobs, but from one of those new entrepreneurs or one of the people in your accelerator?
One of the best pitches I've ever heard is from a guy called Scott Harrison. Scott is an amazing leader of a charity called Thirst. He wrote a book called Thirst. It's called Charity Water. And his pitch was to donate your birthday to raise money to dig wells and to actually get water. So rather than asking people to buy you a drink, you ask them to donate to a water charity and to get people to donate some money towards making clean water available. And he enrolled millions of people in this idea before Facebook made it a thing. He was getting millions of people to donate their birthday to charity water, and he raised, I think, $70 million in 1 year, and it kind of built and built and built. But his pitch was incredible. The way he tells the story of charity water and how he came up with the idea and how his life was not the way he wanted it, and then he met people who didn't have access to water, and it changed his whole mindset. But the way he enrolls you in wanting to work with charity water, that was an incredible pitch. I met a guy called Rob Stewart, who was a passionate diver who would go diving with sharks, and he wanted the world to know that sharks are not dangerous, that sharks are actually very peaceful, beautiful, gentle animals, and that humans are killing 100 million of them a year for their fins to make soup out of the fins, and that we're literally driving them to the edge of extinction. And he wanted to enroll people into this new idea that we had to protect sharks and that we had to see them differently. And every single time you came in contact with Rob, he would completely reframe the way that you thought about nature and the oceans and the environment. Unfortunately, he passed away. Tragically, he died. But he didn't die from being eaten by sharks, by the way.
Oh, that's what I was wondering.
Everyone's thinking that. No, he unfortunately, he was very, very deep diving, and he had a malfunction with his equipment. He died scuba diving. Anyway, he died doing what he loved. But these are some examples of some of the best pitches that I've ever heard. As you know, where you truly get behind what they're doing.
Yeah, and I feel like it's easier to be passionate about, let's say, environmental things or like nonprofits. I guess maybe a lot of us, we are, when it comes to talking about a more for-profit purpose, it's more difficult. But I'm guessing that what makes the pitch more stronger and more influential is that you talk more about the benefits to your target audience as opposed to features, right? So a lot of my clients, I noticed that, let's say on their Instagram bio or their LinkedIn, they are putting everything they have ever done, and they are not thinking, okay, why am I on LinkedIn? Which kind of people do I want to attract? So they either dump everything in there, or they use expert language that the target audience doesn't understand, or they talk more about the features as opposed to thinking about the needs of the target audience. Would you say those are the things that make the pitch more powerful?
Yeah, so the way I think about pitching is that we're just going to mobilize resources to get something done. So when we think about a commercial business, we need to mobilize resources to do something that the world needs. So the world might need clean water, or it might need to protect sharks, but it also might need different ways of transportation, or it might need different technologies that can solve problems. So essentially what we're arguing for is that we're arguing that the world needs something. We're making a case that the world needs something, and that the people who have the resources get behind it and allocate the resources. Now, if we're talking about coaching, for example, I might, if I want to sell coaching, I might ask people, what are they trying to get done in the world? What is it what is it you want to do? What are you trying to achieve? And essentially they might say, well, I want to do this, but I've got all these things that I'm not sure about, or I'm not hitting the targets. So great, I would love to get involved. I'd love to help you. Right? So how can I help? I've got loads of resources. I've got time and expertise and money and all of that. So how can we, what help do you need? What do you want to have happen? How can I help you? How can I resource this, get resources behind it? So we'll have that conversation. And normally people say, well, what do I need to do in order to get you engaged in this project? And I'll say, well, this kind of project has this sort of upside. So essentially what I'd like is to get me engaged, and I'll share with you in the upside of hitting this project. And goes pretty well from there. So look, when I do coaching, I charge astronomical prices for coaching. Close to £10,000 a month, and is like just a basic fee, and then a percentage of the upside. But I only do that with people who have upsides of hundreds of millions, or tens of millions to hundreds of millions. So my fee is really just relative to what we're trying to achieve together. And it's just a fee to get me to mobilize behind the project and get interested in the project and allocate time and energy to it, and to, you know, if they've got a commercial purpose, then it's okay for me to have a commercial purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes I work with charities and it's not a commercial purpose, and then I don't have a commercial side of it. I just help. But if someone's telling me that their purpose is commercial, and I say, well, it sounds like you've got a really great commercial purpose, so would it be okay if I get enrolled in the commercial side of this as well? Yep, great. So here's three options. I'm happy with any of these three. We can either do a really high split on success, or we can do no split on success, but high fees up front, or somewhere in the middle. But think about it like this: we're pitching to get something done in the world. I'm not trying to be out of alignment with your purpose. Whatever your purpose is, I want to be in alignment with it. So most people think about sales as I've got a goal and you've got a goal, and our goals are banging up against each other. I don't think of it like that. It's like I'm only going to work with people where we've got total alignment, that I'm happy and super excited, you're happy and super excited. Let's get started. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another question to you, Daniel. I know that in your book you talked about publishing a book. Now, in today's age where let's say YouTube videos are this evergreen digital assets that everyone can watch, would you say a book is still necessary, and how important is it? Because I was hearing some people talk about the necessity to have a book, and now I am considering writing my book. So I would love to have your opinion on it.
I think a book is part of the overall landscape of what you've got around you, and it does a couple of things. Number one, it's great for credibility. If you've taken the time to write a book, you obviously care about the topic. And that it's a central place for people to access that level of content. So if they want to access that level of thinking, they can run deep with it. They can get into that book. But even if they don't read the book, they know that you must be passionate about this, given that you wrote a book about it. The second thing is it's a scalable format. So if I send you a book, it takes me 1 minute to send it to you, but if you read it, it's going to be 4 or 5 hours of connection and relationship building. You read that book and we exchange something. A book never has a bad day, right? It's always perfectly on message. And, if someone reads it.
I love the example you gave. Okay.
So the other thing too is I'm a big believer in just giving lots of books away for free. So when I write books, I normally give away 1,000 copies of them to everyone who I would like to have a better relationship with. And it's just a really great scalable way to connect and build a relationship with people. They may or may not read it, but they'll keep it in their office and it'll be a reminder. It's one tool. It's not the only tool, but it's a pretty damn good tool. Like if all I wanted to do was coaching, I would definitely write a book and give away 1,000 copies and just tell people I'm a coach. And quite literally that would fill the whole diary.
I was under the impression till recently that it's more your social media presence, let's say Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, that would, build this lead flow. And that I was under the impression that books were more, that it was more, let's say, old school, that people wouldn't read it. But now, one advantage I see with books is, like you said, like if, for example, we met and you want to know more about me, if I just tell you, okay, this is the link to my YouTube videos, it probably comes across like, oh, she's obnoxious, she's like this. So it doesn't feel like a gift. Whereas, let's say, if I give you a book or you give me your book, just thanks to me, it's like a present.
Well, see, humans pay attention to things that are hard, right? So the reason we pay attention to people who have a Ferrari is because a Ferrari is very hard to get, right? So for a number of reasons, it's hard to have a Ferrari. So a Ferrari is almost a symbol that says that you must be doing something right, even if you don't like Ferraris and you wouldn't want a Ferrari yourself. you can say, okay, well, there's something must be going on there, because I know that a Ferrari is difficult, and you can't really fake it, right? There's no such thing as a fake Ferrari. You've either got one, maybe some people can pose next to one that they rent, but if people know you've got one, it says something, right? And it's not about the car; it's about the fact that it's hard. It's hard to have, a book is hard to have, right? So a book is something that's difficult. Now, an Instagram profile, it's easy. And a YouTube channel is easy, right? You can stick a bunch of content on YouTube and you can stick a bunch of, things on there. Mind you, people look at follower counts and view counts and they go, oh, how many followers have you got? Oh, you've got 10,000. Well, that's hard. So you must be doing something right, because it's hard to have 10,000 followers or whatever the number is. So what we're looking for is, humans are always in a noisy world. People have to take shortcuts as to who they pay attention to. So the shortcut is like, have you written a book about it? Have you spoken on a stage? Do other people pay attention to you? Have you achieved success? So people are looking for these shortcuts to try and make sense of a very noisy world.
Daniel, 1 second. We just, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. I can hear you.
Okay, why is it doing that? 1 second. Do you just wanna remove yourself and come back?
Sure, but I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you. 1 second. I'm gonna mute you and then I'm gonna
Hello, can you hear me?
I still cannot hear you. What just happened? I'm just gonna I'm gonna renew you, remove you and then accept you. 1 second. Hopefully this will. Oh no. Okay, my guest. So sorry everyone, just had an issue. Okay. Daniel?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, I don't know what just happened, but okay. By the way, you're getting great comments on both, on a number of apps saying like, this has been so good. I'm glad I caught it, and I totally agree. So thank you so much for making the time for us. What were you saying, Daniel?
I honestly.
We're talking about the books.
Well, I was saying that people are in a noisy world. People are looking for things that you can do that are hard, right? So that they act as a filter. So a book is one thing that, even if people have never read the book, they at least know that you took the time to write the book, and they know that that's hard. Most people don't do it. So it acts as just a filter. So for example, I regularly get invited onto radio in London, and one of the reasons they bring me on radio is I've written 4 books, and no one at the radio station's read any of my books, but they just know that if I've written 4 books, I must know something. So, as far as they're aware, those books are blank. They don't know what I'm going to say. But it's a filter. It's a way of knowing that they've picked someone to go on radio and run a radio show. And there's some sort of a filter there.
Okay, so everyone, now we discovered the way you build your key influence. Basically, write 100 books, and you don't have to put any content in it. They can be blank because nobody's gonna read it.
No one checks, yeah. And pose next to a Ferrari.
You know that
and get a fake Rolex.
Well, you would be surprised how many people do that actually, right? Like that's why I feel like I'm realizing why books are more credible, because on social media, and okay, call me gullible, like I really trust people easily. I used to really believe when I saw the pictures with those, not like really a Ferrari maybe, but when they say, hey, I was here and now I'm here. If the story was flowing, I used to believe it. So that's why now with the books, So let me ask you 2 last questions. The first one is, in 2022, like April 13, that we are this interview, which mediums, like, and feel free to include books, like, what would you say are the best tools to build one's personal brand and influence?
Look, a book is still a great way to help cement your personal brand and influence. It's not as simple as doing one or two things as tools. You need to start out with a proof of concept. You've got to have something of value to scale. So I see a lot of people kind of just trying to make a noise online and get some attention. But if you don't have a good fundamental underlying business, then it's kind of like rain in the desert. It's great that it rained, but it doesn't have anything to grow. So what we need is to start with a business. You need to do that first 100,000 in sales the hard way, right? So you need to pick up the phone and talk to people. You need to schedule Zoom chats. You need to know that you've got a product that can sell. You need to kind of hire a salesperson who's going to make the sales and can sell the product. At that point, I think live events are really powerful. Getting in front of people live is really powerful, whether it's a digital live event or it's a Zoom live event or what we're doing now. Really powerful to have someone's actual live attention. I think that it's very powerful to do joint ventures and partnerships where you're joint venturing with people who've already got some traction and you've got some flow. Authority through proximity is a really great strategy. So essentially, if you're constantly connected with the right people, then it rubs off. So that's always powerful. I'm a big fan of private dinners, getting together with the really great people who have achieved a lot, paying for dinner, having 10, 12 people around a private dinner table and putting together private dinners. Now, all of this stuff, I'll just be really clear, it only works if you've got a business in the background. You have to have a business with a proven product. But once you've got a proven product, like for example, one of my clients said that, well, she had a branding agency and she does luxury branding and rebranding services, and she does brand consulting and all of those things. And she said, oh, I really need to ramp up my business. I've tried lots of social media stuff and all of this. And I said, really simple. I want you to pick the fanciest restaurant in your neighborhood, right? Or the fanciest restaurant close to where you can get to. I want you to find a private dining room that holds 12. And I want you to really go top end and then invite all the people who are part of, through your extended network, who are running brands, who are running businesses and running those kind of business. And I said, just put together a private dinner party and just entertain those people and make sure they know who you are and what you do. And by the end of the night, see if you can purely and simply schedule a one-to-one with them. So just at the end of that dinner, say, or as the dinner progressed, say, I'd love to catch up one-to-one. Do you mind if we put something in the diary? No one will say no. So pretty much she spent, I think it was £900, something like that, on putting together a private dinner. And I think in the following 2 weeks, about £60,000 worth of business came in off the back of that private dinner. And she's now super well connected within that little network. So she said, oh, what should I do next? And I'm like, do it every week, right? Get paid to go to fancy restaurants.
Yeah. You pointed out this another brilliant concept, because I don't remember where I read this, but I think it was Russell Brunson. He was saying that in the beginning of ClickFunnels, they were not making that much money because he used to think, okay, we did this, now I need to come up with a new product or a new concept. And then he got consultancy by a lady, I forgot her name, who was very famous for scaling companies. And basically, when he met her, he's like, yeah, I did this. And he thought she's going to give him
new idea.
Exactly. And instead she said what you just said. She was like, okay, so now you have to do this in different cities. You have to do this all over again. And he's like, that's what I paid for. But, it just, he became a billionaire.
Well, I've got a friend of mine who's approaching. He's not quite a billionaire, but he's got more than 200 million. I know that much.
Gosh. Oh, okay. Now we know what's happening. Daniel, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, he's a billionaire, you said?
Oh yeah, he's incredibly successful and wealthy, but the way he's built his wealth is that he bought a beautiful big yacht, a powerboat, and he has the yacht moored in a beautiful location, and he basically invites people every single week onto the yacht, and then he builds relationships, and then off the back of those relationships, he's floated his company, and he's does mergers and acquisition deals and all that sort of stuff. So it's about picking something that works, and it doesn't have to be digital, right? So dinners, yachts, pick something that works and do it every week, right? Going back to my very first success story, we just did the same thing 43 times in a week. 43 times in a year, sorry.
But I don't want to underestimate your genius in also getting those people to the dinner, because a dinner is something that a lot of people can do, but that you also need to really absolutely read at least Daniel's book on key person of influence, and really study a lot of his materials to also understand how you're going to build a relationship with them so that they will actually show up. That's more the difficult part, right? Otherwise, yeah, fancy dinner. Who would say no to that?
Exactly. You got to know what you're doing with it.
For yeah, and just to finish the interview of Daniel, is there anything, like, what would you like to share with our audience? Is there I know your books are amazing. I know you have the accelerator, you have the score app. Would you like to tell them like what they would like? What would you like our listeners to do after this video if they wanna like get to know you better?
Well, if you want to get to know me, check out the books, Key Person of Influence or 24 Assets or Oversubscribed. So available on Amazon, or you can check out dent.global/resources, and there's versions of them available. Just download there. The thing I'll mention is one of the huge things that scaled us globally is that we built an online scorecard. So in a way for people to self-diagnose whether we could help them or not, whether we could improve what they do. So it was like a digital checklist, a questionnaire, like a test that people would take. And 90,000 people took this, and it turned into about 30 million pounds worth of business. So it was a really great strategy. So in 2020, when people had a real hard time connecting with people in the real world, we built Score App as a way for people to set up online questions and quizzes. And you just use our templates. They've already been written for you. It's 80% already done. You just add your details and make some edits, and you get to white label these scorecards. So it's the best lead generation there is. It's deep information. It's great for coaches and trainers and consultants. And yeah, check that out. Like, we've put 20 years worth of best thinking about marketing into that product. And you can grab a free trial, and you can check it out. It's basically been the best lead generator we've ever had. And it's super powerful for anyone who's got specialized knowledge or they've got a professional approach to helping people. That is, that's the best lead generator there is. So I would encourage anyone to check out scoreapp.com and get a free trial.
Amazing. And as you see, Daniel, he really shares from his heart. He's super humble. So thank you so much, Daniel, for this interview and for sharing all of your wisdom with us. I really hope everyone's gonna be reading your books and checking out the Score app, because yes, I also heard many people swear by quizzes. So yeah, so thank you so much for making time for us, Daniel.
My pleasure.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.